I completely forgot there was a game tonight.
It's not really a game.
Kind of.
It's Cooper Rush.
Chiefs lost, and I just want to sim the week.
Chiefs lose. Season's over. Let's talk about it.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank. If you're thinking about starting a business or know someone who is, check out Emprise Bank's SBA loans. It's always good to know your options, and they can be your partner in possible.
Welcome into the KC Laboratory, presented by Emprise Bank, member FDIC, our tremendous partners in possible here at KC Sports Network. We are very grateful to have been partnering with them as long as we have. And if you are looking for your next banking partner, especially an SBA loan, as the beautiful, talented Nick Springer was talking about in that intro, take advantage of them. They are tremendous. I am here with my tremendous partner in possible here on the KC Laboratory, Matthew Lane. Matthew, hi. How are we?
We're as good as we can do after a loss, I think. Not the end of the season, but it's never as fun to come onto the lab after a loss. It's especially less fun when it's the first loss against a good team, like halfway through the season, and you can't even really be like upset. It's really hard to have a loss that you can't be that mad about when you go to podcast about it, when we come sit down and talk, because like doing Chiefs to this, while it stinks the Chiefs lose, it's always kind of fun. Doing a loss like this, where it's like, yeah, they kind of got outplayed by a good team. What can you do? It won't matter later. It's a little bit less exciting than getting to do a Chiefs to this episode.
Yeah, this isn't Chiefs to this worthy. Like if they lose to the Panthers, we're getting the Chiefs ugly sweaters on and Chiefs divising very hard. But yeah, it's just like it's one of those games, man. When you're looking at a team that is 9-0, that they have escaped some close games. I mean, like if you think about it, they've been to overtime and they blocked a field goal the last 2 weeks, to win these last two games. And here they are. They go into Buffalo and play a tough team and they lose. People are asking if you are going to the Panthers game.
That's the plan. The plan right now is to go. I plan on bringing both my kiddos. The problem is I got to decide, are they really willing to drive a little over an hour, sit through an entire game, and then drive a little over an hour back? So we're just trying to figure out the logistics. My plan is to go. I will let everybody know in the KCS and Discord, because I know there's quite a few people in there that have actually talked about going to this game, what my plans are then. And I would love to see some of you guys out there at the old Bank of America Stadium in downtown Charlotte. Just got to figure out all my logistics this week and see how many of the kiddos want to go.
I think there's like a non-zero chance Sully's there too.
Yeah, he's supposed to be there. I don't know if that's exciting for everybody or not, but
that would
Kyle, it's easy for me. It's just a matter of getting the kids to go through like a 5-hour endeavor for football right now when they have not really been to a football game before. But that's the question.
Yeah, you take them once, they'll be hooked. I can attest that. My kid, it doesn't matter what level of football, my kid is enjoying. Is it a Chiefs game? It's a Mid-American Nazarene University game. By the way, they're going to the playoffs, which is pretty sick.
I should have tested out like on Elon, like practically free to walk in the door right up the street. I should have practiced like on a Saturday, just saying like, hey, what do you guys think about this? But my daughter's getting into the Chiefs a little bit more right now as she's gotten older. Like she doesn't like sit and watch the whole game, but she's more intrigued. So like we're slowly breaking in there, and she's been excited to go. I just don't know if she fully encompasses the idea of how long of the day it's going to be. So we'll see.
I got a question for you off the top before we get into all these things that we want to talk about.
It's a busy show.
I know. Does the last 2 years, kind of just make it difficult to navigate emotions on a loss like this when the Chiefs haven't lost since nearly a calendar year? And, like they've won 2 Super Bowls, and they won the Super Bowl last year on the back of a really difficult season where nothing looked right. This team didn't look like they were going to, figure it out. Like, does that change how you navigate the emotions of a loss like this?
Yeah, I think we've gotten to the point of like, oh, the Chiefs lose, and it doesn't matter how many times, it doesn't matter to whom. You've kind of gotten to the point like, yeah, the Chiefs lost, it stinks. Here's why it might matter. But guess what? Once the playoffs come, it probably won't matter again, or there's a good chance that it doesn't, right? So like that's what gets really difficult about this is, yeah, the Chiefs lose. We want to talk about what we saw and why they lost and what needs to be fixed. But at the end of the day, like we've seen this same song and dance numerous years in a row now that things are going to be fixed. So kind of talking about the minutia of what went wrong, what can go better, what needs to be fixed, it does make it a little bit more difficult to like just process through it and not just simply kick your feet back up and say, they're still in the 1 seed. They still control their own destiny and they will be better come playoff time.
I do have a take though. The Chiefs are still in the 1 seed. They're still in the catbird for the 1 seed and they're going to be better in the playoffs. But we'll get there. We'll talk later about this. I think one of the things that we really like to do is like, I think how we frame some of the things that are bringing concern, and like winning cures a lot of those concerns, right? But they're still there. And so when they finally lose a game, like I think all the concerns kind of come out, especially in a game against, I think, one of the top 3 teams in the National Football League, the best contender for the AFC title, the second best quarterback in football, all those things. There's plenty of things to kind of just look at and say, okay, like, all right, now not only do they have these things, they've shown to cost them in a game. And obviously, I think this is probably the quote unquote best game to lose when you're looking at like the likelihood, if you're looking at the schedule before the season, the most likely loss, you're probably looking at San Francisco, or you're looking, at Buffalo as probably the 2 most likely losses on the schedule. The Chiefs dropped this one. But let's talk about some of the reasons that this team, had their struggles in this game, only putting 21 points up, having their issues. And I think we start with the passing game. So when you look at, the stats for this game, right? You're looking at DeAndre Hopkins, 3 catches, 29 yards, 4 targets, limited snap count. Travis Kelce, 2 catches, 8 yards, 4 targets. The 2 quote unquote like focal points, I think, of the offense, like if this offense is humming along, you're hoping that those 2 guys are seeing a large target share and are super productive. And I mean, the Chiefs get 37 yards on 5 catches out of that group. Are you worried about that? Like, what are your thoughts on just like seeing like the struggles of the Chiefs' best receiver, best tight end, in this game, and what that kind of means for the outlook of this passing game moving forward?
I mean, I think it has to be considered concerning at this point because we've gotten over halfway through the year, and we still see a passing attack that is struggling to tie everything together. There's still a lot of misses to all different levels. It never feels like the Chiefs' offense has been very efficient, and it's been really good on third down. And even in this game, they were 50% third down conversion rate, which is still good against a quality defense. Like there wasn't anything just inherently bad about the offense throughout this entire game, but it wasn't good. It never felt like they put the Bills on their heels. And like, yeah, they had some good drives. They had, the last touchdown drive in the fourth quarter was probably their best drive of the year, or at least since week 1. But they were unable to stack multiple drives together that felt that way. They never felt like they were in control of this game. And you start to try to figure out why. Why does it feel like even if they're being efficient, it's like pulling teeth? Why does it feel like every single time it's like, how can we manufacture 3.5 yards after 3.5 yards? What's the plan here? And so I think the more I watch, the more it comes down to this. Like they don't have, we talk about this a lot, they don't really have an identity or even a focal point on offense this year. And this has been something that we've spoke about, I think, over the years and how things have changed. It used to be at one point in time, Tyreek Hill in the deep ball, and then it was Travis Kelce and all these option routes. And they just have always had different iterations of what they want to do. This year, for the life of me, I couldn't tell you what their identity is. And like a part of it's going to be the run game, which doesn't belong in the passing game talk, but even the run game, it's still 3 yards at a time, 3 yards at a time. It's just, what do they do when this team wants to take over and dominate a game on the offensive side of the ball? What do they do? What's their focal point? What's their plan of attack? In the past, it's always just been Andy throws out all of his designer plays. We're flooding the left. We're flooding the right. Here's a couple meshes. Let's get a quick route out to the running back. And this is all works with a bunch of yak. And then guess what? When that stuff doesn't work, there's this guy, number 87, best tight end to ever play the game. He's going to be good. He's going to win. He's going to get open. He's going to make plays. Guess what? They don't have the yak this year. They design some yak plays that work, but they don't have guys that are forcing missed tackles. They don't have guys that are making plays with the ball in their hand. And that 87 play isn't there. And I think they're still relying on both of those things. They're still trying to rely on people to make plays with the ball in their hand. They're still relying on Travis Kelce to be that guy when they need it, and it's not there. And they just haven't found the replacement for what they want to do for that kind of just that fastball that they don't have anymore.
And you know what, like, I think part of the reason that they might have struggled to have an identity on offense is probably because the presumed wide receiver 1 and 2 for this football team heading into the year are not here. They spent a whole summer scheming stuff up for Hollywood Brown and Rashee Rice, and both of those guys are not on the field, and we don't know. We probably won't see Rashee Rice. I'm pretty sure it's borderline definite, and who knows? Maybe we get to see Hollywood Brown in a Chiefs jersey outside of that one catch in Jacksonville in the preseason. But because this team has won 9 games, you kind of forget the fact that their wide receiver 1 and 2 are no longer playing in this season. So,
well, and if you remember, after that Bengals game, we sat down and we said, hey, I think it's time to throw the offense through Rashee Rice, not Travis Kelce anymore. Like, it was after the Bengals game. What did they do in the Falcons game right after that? They peppered him with 14 targets. He was clearly the focal point of the offense, and the offense looked pretty good in that game. And then he gets hurt in the Chargers game, which you would expect a little bit of grind through after that. Then what do they do shortly after that? They go play the Saints, and they say, hey, we might not have Rashee Rice, but what we do have is Juju Smith-Schuster, like the grandpa version of Rashee Rice. So what if we funnel a lot of our passing attack through him over the middle of the field? And it just doesn't seem like they have even that answer now, which I'm with you. Losing Rashee Rice definitely matters because he was clearly their succession plan to Travis Kelce. They don't have him. They've had 11 weeks now. They've had a lot of games since Rashee has had a month and a half, 2 months since Rice got hurt to come up with some more answers. And I just still don't think they've gotten there yet.
I agree. And I think what's part of it's because it's been a revolving door of who's actually playing this week. Like Juju Smith-Schuster, DeAndre Hopkins, and Xavier Worthy back on the field together for the first time, right? And you look at this team has like had consistency on who's active every single week to this point either. And again, like I think a lot of just like, hey, the winning masks a lot of that, but like, and there's definitely still a ton of time to figure it out. And like I do think eventually this team will find some roles and some identities, but they've been winning despite trying to figure a lot of these things out. And like I think a piece of that is to do with like, hey, look, and like you're right. Like I think a big piece of this was the run game, right? And the running game has been a key factor in this. They've been the number 1 net success rate running team for a large chunk of the season. I don't know if they still hold that title at this point, but a lot of positive gains, a lot of positive yards, putting themselves in very advantageous third down situations. And like, that's been a piece of this identity. Like, if you get it into a 3rd 2-3, Patrick Mahomes will figure it out too. Right. So like, I think that's been a huge piece of what this team has done. And honestly, kind of felt like they went away from the run game a little bit in this one, Matthew.
Yeah. I mean, they did a little bit. I think the issue is the second half of this game, they weren't in a run script spot though, right? Like they come out of halftime and they do get the 2 teams trade stops and they go into their offenses. And like the Chiefs did try to run the ball on both drives. They did run the ball and they got forced with a 3rd and 1 that got stuffed when they tried to run it. And then the next drive, there was a penalty on Wanye Morris on a 2nd and short that set them behind the sticks and they never got back above, like into the sticks. And at that point, the next time they got the ball, it's already the 4th quarter. And now they're down 2 scores again. So I think they kind of got schemed out or like game scripted out of being able to really rely on the run game in the second half. Maybe we can nitpick a little bit more in the first half. They could have leaned on it and tried to, push the Bills around. They were having success on the ground in the first half as well. So yeah, I mean, I do think that we can poke some holes a little bit and not go into the run game. I do want to take a quick little rewind though, before we go back into the run game. I want to talk about Patrick Mahomes. I think it's going to be a hot topic this week. Like, do you think that he is playing good, fine, great, poor? What's your feel? What's your temperature check on how Patrick Mahomes has played through 11 weeks? Don't hit me with anything from a previous season right now. Just how he's played through 11 weeks of the NFL season.
Good with splashes of great. Right. And I'd probably waffle between good and great. I mean, a lot like, man, a couple of that drive in the second half was like that touchdown drive at the end of the second half. Like he was locked in and he was doing Patrick Mahomes things. So like, I don't know. I'd say good, great. Why? Where are you at?
Lower than where you are. I got something funny for you here. Do you know through 10 games last year, the terrible season the Chiefs had last year, how bad the offense was? No run game, terrible offensive line. The right tackle can't line up. The wide receivers can't catch. They're throwing to Kadarius Toney, Sky Moore, Marquez Valdez-Scantling. The left tackle's Donovan Smith. I already said they can't run the ball. Patrick Mahomes had more yards, more touchdowns, less interceptions, took less sacks, was completing more net yards per attempt, essentially better EPA, success rate, better across the board through 10 games last year than he has been through 10 games this year. That's with this year having, I would say, a better receiving group. And I understand losing the two guys at the top factors in, but I mean, still, you don't have the sleeper cell that is Kadarius Toney trying to catch passes and giving games away. You have an offensive line that's playing better because at least this year, Jawan Taylor has been functional the entire season where he was not for a stretch to start last year. He has been counting stats worse than he was last year through the same stretch.
Yeah.
Does that surprise you?
Not all that much, just because.
Wow, okay.
Well, if you think
That
about
shook
it, well, I mean, how many games did they lose in the first? They lost 3 games in the first 11 weeks of the season last year, right? And they put themselves in some holes at times, and they were pressing at times a little bit there, and like it seemed like a little bit harder. Like, and I feel like they've been managing games like a lot more, like in this type of season. So like, I don't know if I can compare it apples to apples. I get what you're saying, and I definitely think like there was some good moments there. I mean. And like there's like I think the thing that we're missing this week or this year versus last year is like if you look, there's a couple just like nuclear-ish Mahomes games. You get him going for 424 in the air against the Chargers in a 31-17 blowout. You get the Bears game where he goes, where they win 41-10, and like those rack some of those numbers up a little bit. But like I'm not completely.
Why can't those come this year though? Where like they haven't. I mean, we can say they haven't had to, but like the defense was also objectively better last year, right?
Yeah.
So like, why is there such a step back? And again, there's injuries, there's planning. Travis Kelce somehow has taken a step back from what he was last year, which we were already saying. Like, there's reasons that lead into it. But I think this is all to kind of say, like, I don't know, man. I think it's definitely, we're on the cusp of getting to say, like, when the Chiefs need to score 30 points, how much faith do we have that they are going to score 30 points all the time? We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out as it goes.
Well, they did 31 this week.
Yeah, they did. And they had they couldn't get there. Right. And it's just, I don't know. It's just going to be interesting to follow. It does seem like we are kind of at that point where Patrick Mahomes, people are going to say he's in a slump and he's playing bad. I don't think he's playing bad. I think if you go back and watch this game, like there's some throws he probably wants back, but overall, I think he's playing pretty well. It's just generally speaking, it just feels very disconnected. The offense as a whole feels very passive, very timid. They are trying to play everything within these super narrow margins. And it's something we talk about all the time, but when you aren't executing perfectly on all those narrow margins, you're going to lose games against other good teams. The Bills essentially did what the Chiefs wanted to do to them. They just beat them at their own game, but you don't have to play that way. And I think it's the timidness and it's the passiveness that I think really sticks out to me when you start to dive in. Is like, they just don't ever really feel like they have that next gear that they can reliably get to put games away, or in this game, come back and win it. So it's just something I got my eye on. You told me before this season that Patrick Mahomes was going to finish with worse counting stats than he had last year. And even some of the advanced metrics are starting to look kind of the same. I would have been floored. You could even told me about the injuries. I would be floored to hear that they came back worse than what they were last year. Because I think last year was just a complete and utter debacle of mistakes and silliness. That's not there this year. There isn't the silliness this year. And they're still somehow doing worse despite not dropping the ball as often, despite having a better pressure rate against. Like, it's just, I don't know. It kind of caught me off guard.
I could see some of that. Like, I'll hear some of that argument. I think there's a lot of layers to it at the same time. And I feel like this team is not trying. Like, I just feel like this team is like a little bit like, I think they are managing. They're managing the season a little bit. And like Patrick Mahomes is managing this season a little bit. And I don't think he really cares about counting stats right now. Not to say that he doesn't need to be better, because I think he does need to be better, but like, it just feels like this team is being a little bit more risk averse than they've been in the past. They kind of finally figured out a formula in the second half of that season last year. And, I don't know. We'll see. I think it kind of goes back to what we're talking about at the top of the show. I'm having a hard time navigating through the emotions and the feelings of like, how much like does this game matter? How much does, we can talk about that later, but like,
We'll get to that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just, I'm navigating these emotions of like, we know that this team figured it out when it mattered the most. And the team was 9-0. And if a few plays go right differently in this game last night, like, are we even talking about some of these things? Probably, but maybe not to the level that I don't know. I want to go back to the run. I want to go. If you want to say something.
My last thing was just like, this was the first time where they had to score and they couldn't do it. And I want to acknowledge that there was a really good fourth quarter drive. And that's kind of like, why can't they do that all game? Why can't they pull that kind of drive out more frequently? Because it felt like they were aggressive. It felt like they were on the attack of a defense, and they're avoiding doing that for large stretches of games. And that's very frustrating because you can clearly see that it's in there. And you can clearly see when Patrick Mahomes is playing that way, he plays better than when he is playing the late career Tom Brady, late career Drew Brees way of never turning the ball over, just checking down and taking what's there. He can do it. He's won doing it. He's won Super Bowls doing it, but he clearly feels more comfortable getting to play a little bit looser and a little bit more aggressive. So it's frustrating they don't see it, but this was a game they finally had to score to win. The defense wasn't going to bail them out, and we're going to talk plenty about that, but the defense wasn't there to bail them out, and it took them way too long to get going. Their feet were just slipping in mud for way too long. It's week 11. There's a long time to the playoffs to make sure that doesn't happen again. I'm not saying it's going to. It's just, I think when you combine the lackluster Mahomes year, because he is making plenty of mistakes on his own, with the fact that this offense really struggles to flip that switch when they need to, it is something to just kind of keep an eye on and wonder, like, hey, if they don't fix this going into the playoffs, will I think they're going to fix it come playoff time like they did last year? Sure. But man, it would sure be nice to see some more flashes leading up to that point.
And if I'm looking at like a couple things that I love about this loss, like that sounds like a dumb thing to say, but I think we talked about it during the show last week. The Chiefs blew some big opportunities in the second half, especially at the top, right? Like the second half, they blew two straight opportunities where the defense forces punts and they get a chance to get control back of this football game, which is kind of a position that they tend to be in a lot, right? They tend to be in that position to go out and kind of control football games and manage it from ahead. And they didn't do it. They punted back-to-back possessions after the defense forces two. And it goes back to kind of just talking a little bit about the run game. Andy Reid talked about how he wishes he would have run the football a little bit more in this game. And I think what I would have liked to see, and what I think, like, I do agree, part of this identity right now for this team is running the football and being in positive yards in early downs so you can put yourselves in better situations on second and third. It's always a 2nd and 7, 2nd and 6, 2nd and 5, 2nd and 3. You know, like they are putting themselves in very good spots on second down, and then they can kind of navigate it from there. And that's been a calling card for how this team has had success offensively. When you look at, and running the football, this team didn't do enough running the football. They put themselves in a 2nd and 3. And I would have liked to see them turn around and hand the football off and just establish that run game in the second half and grind out a drive. Because what happened was the Chiefs played from behind for an extended period of time. They played from behind for the entirety of the third quarter. They didn't put any points on the board. They didn't sustain drives. And then the Bills did. The Bills sustained the drive. They went 10 plays, 83 yards, 6-minute drive to put themselves up 2 scores. And the Chiefs waited a little too long to put the pedal to the metal and be a little bit more aggressive. I think they should have run the football a little bit more in that second half. I think they should have run the ball more coming out of the second half and put together one of those demoralizing drives when the Bills are presenting a box to you that is advantageous to running the football. And I just would have liked to see them do that earlier in the game in that second half. And I think the lesson you learn is you can't do that. You can't put yourself in that situation this time around. You need to be a little bit more intentional running the football. I think the next time, if you're getting into a 2nd and 3, just get another set of downs, man. Just run the football and get another set of downs, and like, I don't know if they were looking for a kill shot early in that second half, but like, I just would have liked to see them running the football a little bit more and play to the style that has had them winning football games for almost a calendar year.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah, I think they definitely could have ran the ball a little bit more. They could have come in. They were having success and they did it. They were the only time that really felt like they got stuffed was that 1 3rd and 1 play. I mean, there was maybe another short yardage run that they didn't pick up a ton of yards, but it felt like anytime they did lean in the run game is they would pick up, positive yards, and that would put you in the 3rd and short. So like, I fully understand where you're coming from. I just think that they got kind of played out of it. The 2nd and 3 play where Travis Kelce gets the quick little pass, but I mean, like, Did we really not like? I don't know. That's not it wasn't a screenplay, so it wasn't like it was an extension of the run game. Like that's fair, but like that's a quick little pass that you anticipate Travis Kelce being able to fall forward for a yard, and he gets pulled down by his ankle and leaves you in 3rd and short. So when you do try to run it, you get stuffed. And then you come out in the next drive, and it's the same thing. You do pick up, you start moving the ball, you get a pretty weak holding penalty on Wanya Morris, followed by DeAndre Hopkins on the deep ball, just not able to bring it in. Like in all, but you're stuck on 2nd and 14. It's tough. I'm with you. They could have ran the ball more. I think I'm even going back and looking through some of the game logs. There was some like a lot of 3-and-outs to start the game too, where it went like run, pass, or pass, run, pass.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, okay, maybe we try just see if you get yourself into a quick 3rd and 1 or 3rd and super short, kind of like they did on the 3rd drive or the 4th drive, I guess, where they went down and scored a touchdown, where you were able to, get to those 3rd and shorts with the run game. You were able to convert with whether it's a pass to Caliendo, whether it's a pass to somebody else. So I see both sides. I see both sides of that one.
I don't know, man. I think, and maybe, I think the next time that these two teams line up, there'll be a little bit more. I think the run ratio will be a little bit more. That's all. I would have liked to see them run the football a little bit more. And I think that opportunity early in the second half was a great chance for them to do that, especially since they've had so much success doing it.
Yeah, and they certainly could. They probably should the next time do it. And the next time these two teams play, hopefully you have Isaiah Pacheco back. And not that I think Isaiah Pacheco is going to get plopped in here and have a Saquon Barkley-esque like impact on this game. However, this game was a good game for Kareem Hunt overall. Kareem Hunt is definitely losing steam. Like we've talked about it now. He's getting less and less yards. He's getting further and further away from the expected yards per play. A lot of times he's getting tackled behind his blockers on really well blocked out run plays. Now, again, this game was pretty good for him. And I think that goes to show how good like the offensive line was run blocking. But I do think it goes a little bit better when you have Pacheco, when you don't have one running back that you believe in and Mr. Kareem Hunt kind of just trying to bruise the downhill. So maybe that is a big change. Is now Pacheco's back. Maybe you do lean on the run game a little bit more. You force the Bills to eventually get out of the softer shells or mixing up the soft zone coverage with the man-to-man stuff. Like I can definitely see if these two teams rematch again, going back to the run game more frequently than they did. I just don't know when I got to the totality of this game. If you can nitpick plays here and there, but I don't know if I got to the totality of it and don't understand how you only end up with 16 running back carries and a couple like wide receiver things.
We're going to take a break. We'll be back right after this.
Shop Chiefs tickets and more with no fees. Plus, save big with code KCSN at ticketsforless.com, the official ticket provider of KC Sports Network.
Thanks, everyone, hanging out with us tonight. And listen, I know that it has been kind of tough, right, with the Chiefs experiencing their first loss of the season. But this is a season of giving. And this is an opportunity that we have at KC Sports Network to help a lot of kids out there that don't have the same kind of luxuries this time of year that maybe everyone does. And we do the Soul of KC raffle every single year to try to help raise money for the kids over at Operation Breakthrough. It's a raffle and toy drive. So we do what we can to try to raise as much money as we can for kids. If you go to givebutter.com/KCSN Soul, you can enter into that raffle with your donations. We've got all kinds of incredible prizes. Signed jerseys or helmets, from Patrick Mahomes, Chris Jones, Justin Reed, Chamari Connor, Leo Chenal, Nick Bolton, like so many great signed memorabilia pieces, a holiday bourbon pack, a VIP tailgate and 2 tickets to the Texans game. Bobby Witt Jr. are all kinds of just incredible prizes, and it's all, proceeds to try to raise money through, for Operation Breakthrough. And those kids, man, they don't have, as the same kind of, luxuries that we're all blessed with. And it's such a cool experience to be part of this. So if you donate to the Venmo, 1 ticket for $20, 5 tickets for $50, 15 tickets for $100. If you go to givebutter.com/KCSN Soul, you can also donate there. So the links are in the description of the show. Appreciate everybody that does support this. It's a really special thing every single year, and we'd love to see you be part of this again this year. If we can kind of talk about the defensive side of the ball a little bit. We got into some of the stuff with the offense. I think the pass rush is definitely showing up, in a game like that. And, I think Chris Jones did some good things in that game. From like, he was really the only one that was generating any kind of pressure. Outside of that, I don't think you saw a ton of guys really finding consistent pressure. So something that has come up and has been of concern in recent memory, definitely reared its ugly head again. Lack of pass rush for this team has been a problem.
Yeah, I mean, it was obviously a problem in this game. Even to Chris Jones' point, like, I know he recorded 7 pressures, but I don't think he even hit Josh Allen a single time on those 7 pressures. It felt like even when he was getting pressure, Allen was able to evade what he was doing. And because part of the issue was Chris Jones was getting wide. Like, Chris Jones was getting pretty far out of his gap to record some of his pressures. And I don't mean that he was, playing, he's the sole reason that some of these scrambles happen. But if you just go back and watch some of them, Chris Jones gets, pretty quick pressure. But if you watch his pathing to get there, he leaves a giant space behind him for Josh Allen to escape through. And because the Chiefs were not spying very often for some reason, there was a lot of space for Josh Allen to scramble or then go out and make a throw on the move. So I just don't think the pass rush as a whole did very well. I thought that you were going to see Chris Jones dominate the right guard or right tackle at his will in this game because he shows up for big games, and it really never happened. George Karlaftis had a couple pressures that kind of looked nice, but the same issue. He's spinning back into the B gap and losing contain to get that pressure. Well, Josh Allen's going to escape from that. He goes too far up the arc and has to counter back inside, but as soon as he tries to counter inside, Josh Allen's getting away. So it felt like anytime the front four got a little bit of pressure, and there wasn't a lot, it just felt like when they got a little bit of pressure, they had to do so and leave so much space for Josh Allen to escape and to maneuver that it was pretty easy for him to evade the pressure when it did come.
Yeah, I think he comfortably escaped contain. And like, I do think they were playing a lot of contain rush and just trying to keep him in the pocket and kind of build that wall and walk him back, right? Like, I think in some of the more I think that was more successful almost than some of the pressures that they generated, was continuing to just build that wall and continue to, make the march toward the quarterback. I think that was some of their more successful, operation at times, and that's fine. But outside of that, I mean, there wasn't pressure generated from specifically from the 4-man rush. I think the Bills actually did. I think Josh Allen did a really good job with some of the blitzes that they tried to send. But the 4-man rush itself was not cooking at all, and it definitely does bring some concern. They were like,
hopefully soon.
Hopefully, Jack Rich is asking when many who's coming back. Hopefully soon. I think there's some games that they can win without him, but they're definitely going to need him. The next time that these teams line up, I do think. And Andy Reid kind of talked a little bit about rush lane integrity a little bit today too. Chris walked himself from B gap to B gap and just left this wide open rush lane for Josh Allen to escape. And Josh is going to take advantage of those when you give them to him. And I think he saw it very quickly that he was going to be able to get that 2 yards, and he took care of business there. And Chris, definitely was getting out of his lane at times, but the best rushes were when they were building that wall and containing, and that involved Chris. Like, if that was the rush plan, it was to do that more. Stick to it, man. Stick to what got you, stick to what got you there, I guess, right? Because if they just build that wall, I don't know if Josh Allen is ultimately able to get the 2 yards there. He still probably does, but it's going to be a lot more challenging than what they had.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely think contained rushing was some of what they tried to do. It's like, that's why you maybe weren't getting a ton of pressure off the edges, and you thought maybe your interior guys would get pressure, and maybe that's why you didn't have the plan as much for a spy, is because you weren't expecting him to be able to escape through the middle as much the way they did it. I don't know. It just wasn't a good showing for this defensive line across the board. And we spent a lot of time kind of saying Chris Jones, and it seems unfair that Chris Jones was by far their most effective pass rusher and singling him out, but also, he's the guy paid to be the most effective pass rusher. So when it's not really having an impact on the game, I think it is fair to bring it up. And there were plenty of 3rd and longs that he didn't get a lot of pressure on and stuff like that. And it forced Spags to feel like he had to blitz a lot. And that was an issue in itself because, hey, here's this little secret. Josh Allen was the best quarterback in the NFL coming into this game against the blitz. So maybe blitzing on every single 3rd and long wasn't the way you should have tried to beat them. But I don't think the Chiefs felt like they were going to get pressure without doing it. And they didn't trust their coverage unit to hold up for 3 to 4 seconds because Josh Allen will sit back there forever until someone comes open if you don't get pressure. So I think they felt like they were in a bit of a catch-22. At the end of the day, though, I would have liked to see them try some different stuff than just blitzing to make up for the lack of pass rush, right? Like, I don't think that clearly didn't work. Maybe they should have tried something a little different. I guess they did on that final 4th down. And they said that Josh said, like, hey, they kind of got us. They didn't play man. And then, like you said, somebody got way out of their pass rush lane, left a huge gap, and he was able to run for it. So just wasn't a good plan across the board, I don't think, from this rushing. I did want to say the Bills pass protection, I don't know. This is the big difference. If you want to go back and see something silly, however you can rewatch the game, go rewatch. Watch the pockets that the Bills offensive line gives for Josh Allen compared to Patrick Mahomes. And even when pressure comes, if you watch the Bills pocket, it's wide. He's got a lot of space. It's a very spacious pocket. I don't know what the Chiefs do, but the Chiefs pocket always seems super condensed. When you watch Mahomes, he's making like this effort to stay in the pocket right now. But if you watch it, it's a super condensed pocket. When it's time for him to stay in the pocket and slide around, he can't really slide more than a step until he's on top of an offensive lineman. Sometimes that's their guards and center who are very good. Sometimes it's a tackle. It's just they don't give a very secure pocket with a lot of space to move in. If you go watch the Bills, they do. They give a very wide pocket for him to slide around. And so even when the pressure comes, he's got plenty of space to go to escape it. He's not getting crunched down and having to try to spin out and escape out the backside every time because he's got space to move. So, like, it's just, I don't know what the difference in the pass protection team. Andy Heck's been very good at his job for a long time. It just feels like the Chiefs right now are blocking for a very narrow pocket at the same time that Patrick Mahomes is trying to stay in there and it's not working. And the Bills are doing the opposite. They're saying, yeah, we might give up some pressure, but guess what? If we give Josh Allen, our great quarterback, an escape lane because it's so wide and there's so much extra space, he's going to make it work. And it's just, it seems like a different in styles.
Yeah, and it's probably like they invite Josh Allen running up the middle a lot more than the Chiefs do too. Like there's a little bit of that as well. It's like, you know, the Bills are okay with that happening. I do want to say, like, I'm not trying to just be like super hard on Chris, but like I think the point is, like, if you're the $30 million man and you're the, you know, like he's the best pass rushing defensive tackle in football, and you live with some of these mistakes at times where he, you know, goes hunting for some of these pressures and playmaking, but that's the downside is if you're out of your lane in a situation like that, that can really affect that can affect such a big play. And so, like, I think it kind of goes, you know, there's a little bit of there. This team has drafted a lot. You know, they've drafted 2 first-round defensive ends, and they paid Mike Dana this offseason. That group has not taken a big step, I would say, from last year. Joshua Uche, yet to really see his impact. I mean, he barely played in this game. And I don't know if it was – and here's honestly, theoretically, if you're wanting to play a little bit more contain rush, Josh Uche only, you know, playing in limited snaps and only rushing the passer a few times. If you're trying to build a wall and push the pocket, then you're probably not playing Joshua Uche. You're probably playing those bigger guys and trying to build that wall and walk it back to the quarterback, right? So maybe that was more of the game plan. It kind of felt like that's what they were trying to accomplish in this game a little bit more, just hold them in there and not give them those escape routes, you know, up the middle. So maybe that's why Uche did, but like they've got a lot of work to do. They got to get that group figured out, and definitely Charles Omenihu, who's, you know, return will definitely help that as well.
Yeah, I mean, like I don't think there's a fix to the I don't think there's like just a drop-in fix for the 4-man pass rush, right? Like it's going to be Chris Jones decides to come on at the right time, and right now he is playing a lot of snaps, and maybe he does need to have his snap count dialed back a little bit, especially as they get healthier, and let some other guys eat some snaps so he's fresher for the playoff run, and then he can turn it up when he needs to. I don't know what it is. I don't think that there's like a clear fix to this. I think Charles Omenihu will help, but here's a guy coming back from a knee injury down the stretch, and like we're going to kind of need him to step in within his first 6 to 8 games being back and be back to what he was last year, which wasn't a star, but it was a very good complementary rusher to Chris Jones in the moment. So I think it can get a little better. It needs to get a lot better than what it was. And so the team so they don't have to blitz as much, because I think as we're about to get to, I don't know if they can trust their secondary to cover when they do have to blitz this often to get pressure. Because wow.
Yeah, let's talk about it. So Jalen Watson was a very clear loss, and I think you're seeing that week over week as his absence. He was having a fantastic season, and this defense looked a lot better when Jalen Watson was out there. When you look at Najee Johnson, getting tons and tons and tons of snaps over Joshua Williams at this point. I think Najee Johnson was 100% of the snap guy in this game against the Bills.
Yep.
Trying to understand, like, I'll give you the context of why I think the Chiefs like Najee Johnson, right? So I think Najee Johnson is, and why the coaching staff is so endeared to him and has been so endeared to him. I think Najee Johnson is he understands the assignment. He understands what he's supposed to do. He understands the defense, and he is a physical, willing tackler. He's physical in the flat. He's gap sound in the run game. And I think they value those things significantly. They trust him in that regard, and they say, we'll live with an elite quarterback making a corner route throw to Amari Cooper. We'll live with some of those plays because we're gonna get to third and spags, and we're gonna do it because our corners can be active in the run fit, because we're gonna be physical in the flat and all those kind of things. So that's theoretically for me why I think the Chiefs value a Najee Johnson. The problem is the Buffalo Bills picked on Najee Johnson in the passing game at an alarming rate. He couldn't cover, and that's not a new thing. This is not something that's new. It's something that got exposed, and that's really the truth of the matter. This has always been a struggle for him. He's seen him fall for some double moves. You've seen him make some mistakes. He can't carry vertically with Amari Cooper. I don't know, man. They got a big problem on their hands. They got a big problem on their hands if Jalen Watson's not coming back.
Well, yeah, Najee Johnson was just really bad. I agree with the concept of he's physical and he plays the run pretty well, and he comes up and tackles pretty well sometimes. I don't know if he knows the defense that well. I've seen him try to pass off a lot of routes in some really crazy ways, and even just the way he handled the potential OPI mesh play. Even if he's not OPI'd with on that play, that's a first down at worst. He's going so far over the top of this to get to an under route. He's got zero chance to make the tackle before a first down. He's playing entirely to win a foot race to the goal line. And I don't know if he does know all of what he's supposed to doing and understanding all the leverage and understanding all the switches. It's not Joshua Williams level where you're pointing out constant times where it seems like he's on a different level, but I don't know. I think there's been a handful of issues with him and just understanding what's going on there. And then even when he is in coverage, targeted 12 times, gives up 9 receptions, over 11 yards per catch. It was bad. And what really stuck out to me, there was the mesh play. There was a play earlier in the game where they did another kind of switch release, and he just passed off his guy for no reason. And it's oh, wait, never mind. I can't do that. It's well, yeah, of course you can't just pass your guy off for no reason here. It makes no sense. So I don't know. It's going to be tough with him going forward as they continue to play teams that are going to try to take advantage. And it doubles down. Jamari Conner is good in his very specific role. Jamari Conner's not good in coverage. That's not his spot, especially against shifty slot corners, or slot wide receivers. So the combination of those two guys together, 2 of your 3 primary coverage players on any given down are not good at covering people. That's not what they are good at. That's not great.
There's arguments to be made about more players in that secondary that aren't the best coverage players either, right?
Sure. But they're not, I would say, I guess, they're not complete liabilities. Justin Reed isn't great, but Justin Reed gives up catches that are for 6-7 yards per catch. And you'll live with that out of a safety the majority of the time. Conner and Johnson combined 11 yards each per reception. Conner also had the big, long, pivotal pass interference play, what he was cooked on and had to pass interfere. It's just those two guys together. It puts the Chiefs in a really difficult spot because neither of them are good at covering. And I would even make the case, Trey McDuffie had a great game. I don't want to say anything about it. He had a very good game this one, but he's better in the slot too. The Chiefs defense loses some of the juice they have with him not being in the slot, being able to blitz whenever he wants, inserting into the run game because Conner can deliver hits. Guess he also misses a lot of tackles that Trent McDuffie wouldn't miss if he was in the same spot as him. And so it seems like all their quarterback spots, the way they are gelling together right now, aren't great. I am a little worried about this coverage unit going forward. This kind of feels like when Williams and Watson were rookies, and as the year went on, teams realized oh, if we just target those two guys a lot, it's going to probably end up in our favor, right? Like, and they ended up winning the Super Bowl. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, they won, it worked out, but it definitely got to the point down the stretch that year and in the playoffs where, like, you knew teams were going to target them. Teams are going to keep throwing at Connor and Najee Johnson right now. And, like, the indications that we've got from those two guys in coverage this year have not been good.
Guess how many cornerbacks played defensive snaps for the Chiefs last night?
2. Well, I mean, Connor, I guess, is a safety technically. I'm guessing
I'm calling
2.
him a safety still. It was 2. Like you had,
yeah.
It was Najee Johnson. It was Trent McDuffie, Joshua Williams, and Keith Taylor. Your other outside corner types didn't see a single snap.
Yeah. And like
Christian
Buffalo
Roland
wasn't
Wallace,
going,
whatever you want to call him,
like, yeah.
But,
and like Buffalo wasn't going with a lot of wide receivers out there, like, right? Like, they weren't like really trying to spread them out to say like, now we're going to test your cornerback depth. And I think the Chiefs, because of Josh Allen and the way the Bills do also like to run the ball, even though they couldn't, they wanted Connor out there over anybody else. It's just, this is something to note. If Jalen Watson can't come back, the Chiefs are going to have a little bit of difficulty, I think, figuring out how this coverage unit's going to work. It's not like they have a great linebackers for coverage either. And while Brian Cook and Justin Reed, I think, are serviceable as coverage guys, neither one of them are great coverage for coverage safeties as well. So, like, what do they have going on back there? It's just, I don't know. It's a lot of pressure on Spags' plate, I think, to figure out how to cover people for this defense. And this is why it's so much more pivotal for the pass rush to start getting home, because the coverage unit can't be that strength that carries them like it was at times last year when the pass rush wasn't getting home without blitzing. They just don't have the horses on the back end for that.
Yeah. They need to generate some pass rush. They need some help there. Okay, so we kind of been talking a little bit about it here and there throughout this entire game, this show, but I think we've given you a lot of the reasons and things that have affected this team in this game and a lot of the struggles that this team has. First loss of the year. They've won a lot of football games. They've beat a lot of good football teams in the first 10 games of the year. Does this loss to the Buffalo Bills matter, Matthew?
Such a loaded question.
I know. But it's the big
discourse.
It's the big discourse. It's one of the biggest pieces of discourse out there right now. So what do you think? How much does it matter? How much? Like, does it matter?
It matters from the sense in that the things that they struggled with that we kind of touched on, I think a lot of it's Patrick Mahomes not playing his best, or in the offense as a whole, but like it's always going to come down to your quarterback, right? Like, it comes down to Patrick Mahomes, and the offense as a whole wasn't executing as good as they needed to win their kind of game script. They weren't being aggressive enough, I don't think, when they needed to be aggressive. And whether that's through the run game or the pass game, I think they came out and were a little too passive at times, trying to play ball control and shorten the game. And it led to 3 and outs. It led to 1 first down out. So like I've done all year. This isn't a 1-game sample size. This is something they've done all year. The thing is, though, when you are draining out the clock with 10-minute drives against the Buccaneers or against the Broncos or whoever, it doesn't look that bad. When all of a sudden those are becoming, you're only getting one of those every half because you're going 3 and out every other time, then it looks bad. So yeah, I think the lack of aggressiveness, if not it doesn't get fixed, is going to matter. I think the coverage unit that really struggled against Buffalo's beat up wide receiver and tight end group is going to matter if they don't fix it. They have clear things coming out of this game that have to be fixed come playoff time, or it will matter what happened. Does the outcome of the game matter at all? No. Is that enough fence sitting?
Yeah, you massively, as you always do. I don't walk away feeling that this game matters all that much in the long term. I don't feel like this has any bearing on the next time that these two teams match up. I think it's great for the Chiefs to see this. I think it's great for the Bills to show and reveal, like, hey, we're going to be pretty aggressive in some of these gotta have it situations. We're not going to sit on our hands and let Patrick Mahomes have the football like some of these other teams that haven't been able to beat him. Like, I think they know the intent of the Buffalo Bills the next time these two teams match up. The Bills could not run the football, and they started peppering the flats, and they started really activating the screen game. I think the Chiefs will be better prepared for both. I think they'll run the foot. I think they'll be able to continue to stop the run effectively, and I think they'll have a good plan for the flats in these swing screens and some of these kind of games and stuff that they were trying to run there. I think they had a key moment where the contain rush didn't contain, and they'll be able to point to that moment there too, right? I'm not saying this is a good loss. I'm just saying it's I think there's things that this Chiefs team will learn. They'll point to the execution coming out of the second half, and they'll say we can't mess around this time. We got to be better in this situation here. Maybe we run the football a little bit more. Andy Reid, one of the first comments he made right after the game was, we got to run the football a little bit more. I should have called more runs. I think these are all things that if you fix them, if you take some things into consideration a little bit differently, I think the outcome's different, especially since I do believe the next time that these two teams play, it'll be at Arrowhead. So I think the Chiefs this was the most obvious Chiefs loss, I think, of the season for them on the schedule. They lost it. It meant more to the Bills. I'm not saying the Chiefs didn't mean a lot to the Chiefs, but the Bills kind of, you kind of heard their commentary after it, right? So I don't know. I feel good about the next time that these two teams match up. By the way, I picked them to lose this game. I will not be doing that the next time that these two teams match up. I will be picking the Kansas City Chiefs to beat them in the playoffs. If the Bills make it to the AFC Arrowhead Invitational, we'll find out. They definitely seem like the favorite to do so at this point, though. Any other thoughts before we get out of here, Manny?
Yeah, I mean, just to kind of piggyback off that, I think we'll have to see what happens between now and then, right? But I don't imagine myself after what we've seen in this game and looking at the near misses the Chiefs had. Bills also have near misses on the offensive side too. But looking at what the Chiefs could have almost done in the what if hypothetical world, I think I feel very comfortable picking the Chiefs to win again in the playoffs in this matchup. I just think that we went 10 weeks before this, 9 games before this, of seeing these exact same issues creep up. And then at the end of the game, it's scoreboard, those issues don't matter. And so they weren't ever being fixed. Now you finally lose a game. Is that going to be enough to make you actually fix them? Or is it just going to be more of oh no, we just have to fix this one little execution nugget here, this one execution nugget there, and we would still be undefeated again? So how much do you actually learn from this is, I guess, what we're going to come out and want to see. Typically in the past, the Chiefs learn a lot from these situations, and sometimes it takes more than one loss to get them to really dig into it and figure it out. So we'll see. I think they will take the right lessons home from this. It's just the lessons have been there for the past 10 weeks. Maybe don't wait until you actively lose about them to start to fix some of them, or if they have the answers. Maybe they just don't have the answers right now, and it's going to take another month or 2 months of football until they kind of figure it out. We'll have to see. But I think I feel pretty good when these two teams play each other again.
And I do think we will see them in January. And we'll see
Probably.
you for a game preview of the Carolina Panthers with Matt Hamilton on Wednesday. That is going to do it for this episode of the KC Laboratory. Thank you all so much for listening, watching, supporting. We love you. We appreciate you. We'll catch you later.
This feels like an Alex